How can you surprise veteran players in Dungeons & Dragons? Leave your ideas down in the comments below. Aha! Aha! Ho ho! Hee hee ha! I've GM'd these games, and they're among the funniest because I'm dealing with players, not necessarily characters, who are familiar with the lore, the stats, the monsters. I have sent a level 4 party to capture, kill, subdue a Tarrasque in space. They were terrified when they saw the creature, at least as much as their characters. Sent a level 8 party to investigate a god's data center, only to come face to face with an elder void dragon and its horde of plague-ridden zombies. I've given a level 1 party the task of solving a murder that may not have actually been a murder. Had the party discover a secret about the in-game universe that wasn't published yet, but that the game's creative team and I were in sync on, so when they found out about it, they were shocked and amazed. And when something very similar was later published, they thought I was on the creative staff or something. Oh, here's a good one. I killed the party. Well, most of them, through suicide, so that they could talk with the god of the underworld, which one of the characters, an atheist to boot, managed to seduce. That was some interesting roleplay. Now, in my experience, people who have run games are just like other players, except they would like more roleplay opportunities, so I give them what they want, sometimes in unexpected ways. Do note they did not capture the Tarrasque, by the way. They let pirates capture it instead. That was going to come back to bite them later, but the group disbanded. But before we continue, here's a little word from our sponsor, Aravan's Guide to Death and Beyond. Aravan's Guide to Death and Beyond is an upcoming 350-page tome of dark spells, unholy monsters, arcane craftable items, and undying mega bosses for D&D 5th edition. That answers one question. Can a party go on after a TPK? It's packed with plenty of new content and original mechanics like an undead grafting system, an undying ship that you can upgrade across your adventures, 8 new races, 10 mega bosses, and the profane layers they dwell in, arcane familiars, dark subclasses, and everything you need to craft an accursed tale for your players to enjoy. Enter a world where the power of death is weakened. Watch your comrades fall, only to rise again as an undead. And embark on a campaign that takes your party from level 1 to level 10, shrouded in the horrors of a setting-agnostic story, sure to grip your whole table. The Kickstarter begins on May 15th. Support the release to gain access to rewards like a free Liquid Core Soul River D20, superb discounts off the final release, highly detailed original miniatures, and more. Links are in the description below. Stop using the rules. Vets who know all the stats, all the rules, that doesn't mean they know what's in your mind. Make ogres that fly, have dragons who are cowards. The term is to subvert expectation. For example, what if Little Red Riding Hood, when first meeting the wolf, cuts his head off and wore his bloody pelt over her shoulders as she systematically erased all wolves from the forest? So you just kind of turned her into a pissed off dwarf. I like that. Or if the cookies she was delivering to Grandma were laced with poison because Little Red was planning on killing her for the inheritance. It's your world. Make it your own. Sounds like a great series on Netflix. You can do all the stuff others suggest, which is all fine and good, although frankly the random solution can come up with some really trite stuff if you're unlucky. So I wouldn't do that, or perhaps I would cheat a bit. Or you can really challenge them. Now this, of course, depends on the kind of vets we are talking about. If they are all about hack and slash and grabbing the XP and loot, and really unwilling to try something new, then that's just fine. Perhaps the random solution is for them after all. But having played myself for a long time, mostly as a DM, and since I'm older and my friends are too, some with families and very little time to spare, I thought that my best D&D experiences were behind me. Well, I was wrong. A very close friend of mine, who happens to be abroad and have no experience whatsoever as a DM, came up with the idea of doing a remote campaign over Fantasy Grounds. I was skeptical at first, as I firmly believe that D&D is a social game meant to be played face-to-face, with snacks, drinks, and good company. But I knew that there was really no other way for us to play together. So I signed up for it, along with my wife, who has some experience from a small campaign I ran a few years ago, another close friend, she's also a veteran of several campaigns, and 3 other friends ranging from at least some D&D experience to an absolute hardcore player who is playing 3 campaigns concurrently, but mostly with the classic hack-and-slash style. My friend, though, had a mind to do things a bit differently, and he managed to get us in a heavy roleplay campaign with permadeath rules. Oh, that's right, no raised dead, kiddos, and a strong story. This is something I've always wanted to do, but I could never get the right party to do it. Now, we did get some RP done in my most lengthy campaign, but it was nothing close to this. And guess what? The remote game actually helped with it. We were playing with sound only, and the DM has gone out of his way to create the best possible atmosphere with sound effects, meticulously chosen artwork, and music. Trust me, getting those to work and not stutter all the time over voice chat is a pain. And since we don't see each other, it's much easier to let the voices and sounds guide us and really get into it. Of course, there are encounters and full dungeon runs from time to time, but the main focus is the story, which combines some elements of the Sundering world event in Faerun with some story elements that the DM made up, including the full story and aftermath of his previous campaign, which was another RP-heavy affair, but played with another group, traditionally around a table. We're on the 2nd year now, and it's nail-biting, edge-of-your-seat kind of stuff. To make a long story short, yes, there are things that can surprise a veteran player, even a DM, if they're willing to try something different, and if there's a DM and a party who are able and willing to do it properly. What we're doing now, though, it's tricky. It requires serious time investment on the part of the DM, creative play, and it's the sort of thing that just one uncooperative player can ruin. Here's another solution if you're unable or unwilling to go for a story RP heavy approach, is to try alternate settings. Now, if the players have only or mostly experienced the traditional medieval fantasy settings, you can challenge them with something more exotic. You could try a steampunk setting, an Underdark Drow campaign where all PCs are evil, a spell-jamming adventure, a plains-based campaign, or a gothic horror setting like Ravenloft, my favorite. Most of these are not something an inexperienced DM might find easy, unless the setting really appeals to them and they can invest in fleshing it out well, besides just alternate monster tables and exotic weapons, of course. The key is to ask the players what they're willing to try and not to force them into it. Perhaps what they've played in the past, perhaps they've tried, say, Ravenloft, but they found it boring because the DM wasn't really up to it. Think about what would suit you as a DM and go for it. Just because a veteran has seen it all doesn't mean that they have seen it done properly. Find something that speaks to you, see if it intrigues your players, and if you can get a good mix, then try it. I like to do it by changing stat blocks of monsters. For instance, I might use an aboleth stats for a dragon, or I might add a picture of a Gorn from Star Trek and just give it orc stats, so that the players have to interact with a creature before they know what they're up against. Or I might make a goblin immune to physical damage, but fatally allergic to being tickled. So that's how I deal with combat to keep experienced players on their toes. Now that's important to be sure, but the way to keep the game fresh, even for people who have been playing it for a long time, is to remember that the story possibilities are literally endless. Every campaign requires, and eventually provides, answers to a sea of questions. Is there a mystery? Then there's going to have to be a bunch of encounters and interactions with townsfolk and the lot. Is there a rescue? Are there going to be interactions with the person you rescue? Are they grateful, arrogant, cruel, scared perhaps? Is there a quest? Are there secondary characters? Does your party pick up auxiliary NPCs? Do you have a patron? What are the local politics? Are there local tyrants? Is there an ongoing rebellion? Are there ancient prophecies or animosities to navigate? Are your PCs welcomed or viewed with some suspicion? Are there mistaken identities? Are there moral quandaries? Is there a dam that has to be broken to prevent an invasion, but which, if broken, will flood a valley and kill thousands? Is there an evil warlord who oppresses his people, but is the only force who can prevent an invasion by an even worse foe? Are there other teams trying to achieve the same goals as the party? Is it friendly competition or open hostility? Do the parties feel the same way about it? Is there some sort of time constraint? Is there an ancient cult racing to complete a terrible ritual, or a volcano about to destroy a city that contains a vital clue to an important puzzle? Is an overwhelming army bearing down on a town in which a lost and amnesiac prince lives? Is your party unjustly blamed for crimes? Do they have to clear their names? Do they have to disguise themselves to work undercover? Are they trapped in a hostile city, one step ahead of the corrupt castle guard, but unable to leave until they avenge the death of one of their members? Answering all of these questions is the work of everyone at the table, and this is why playing with experienced players is so much fun. They understand that the job of the DM isn't to fool or trick them, but to create interesting situations that allow everyone to collaborate to tell new and interesting stories in new and interesting ways. I tell them at the beginning that everything I do will be in the interest of making the story fun. I will not try to use the rules to mess them over or punish them. If their character dies, I will try to work in a dying monologue so they can feel heroic. I get them to trust me. That never goes well. I swear that statement is just evil in itself. Then I add layers to the story. I allow things from past sessions to affect future sessions. One of the big complaints about a lot of TV shows is that something happens and it never has any effect. So I let their decisions make for new plots. It gives the game stakes. You took compassion and healed the hand of the young blacksmith. Now she feels like she owes you one and will help you in the future. Subverting expectations helps too. That's my favorite. Now, for instance, my group went into everything as murder hobos, and they had to clear out a castle filled with orcs to get to the objective. Now, if I did it as normal, they're making noise which will alert everyone, and so they'll have about 100 bad guys after them. So I treated the castle more like an apartment building instead, little cells separate from each other. So they went in and started slaughtering orcs at the dinner table and goblins reading to their children. It was a while before they asked themselves why things were so easy. Why was that goblin reading? Children. Wait a minute, goblins can read? When they figured out that this particular group worshipped a different god and was peaceful, then they started thinking before acting. Sleeper storylines. If someone tells me their character is estranged from their family, well, somewhere down the line, you're going to have a visit from your long-lost brother who only shows up when he wants money. I had one player who wanted to have a daughter in his past. I had her show up in the game 2 calendar years later. She was a young woman of 16 who looked just like her mother. Literally bumped into her at a restaurant. Collaborate. As above, if the players give you ideas about a side quest or a setting, try to find a way to work it in. It makes them feel like they're a part of the setting, and it makes them understand that they're important to the game. Here's another good one, interactive puzzles. This is a new one that I've started doing. Instead of rolling to open the uber magic door, whoa, they had to solve 3 sets of ciphers. I gave them a Caesar cipher, a Pigpen cipher, and a grid cipher. It took them working together for about 45 minutes to clear them all, and they loved it. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and let us know down in the comments below. How can you, or how do you, surprise veteran players in D&D? We love you all. See you next time. Bye for now.